Sorry. Oh, I just swallowed like I was drinking some water and I swallowed something down the wrong pipe. So, okay, so today's subject is Melchizedek Part 4, the Giants. First off, Master of Ceremonies, what's going on?
Nothing much happening. We got a couple early birds. Shannon also says greetings from the Empire. And
Hold on
Thomas
just a second.
Tucker
I'm
says
sorry.
greetings
Hold
to
on.
all.
I got this. The train is going by now, and it's so loud I can't hear you, so nobody else can hear you. Hey, you know what though? All the technical difficulties are taken care of, so any other little problems we have shouldn't be a big deal. Unless I keep choking. I can't talk when I'm choking to death. And if you haven't heard any of that, don't worry, you didn't miss anything. Okay, hello, welcome, hello everybody. Welcome to another live stream from the only source of information that you need to not only survive the current apocalypse but actually enjoy it. And today we're going to be talking about Melchizedek Part 4, the Giants. And in case you missed the first introduction, because of the train, Ala Toledo is going to introduce himself and introduce, tell us what's going on over there, since I can't see any of it.
Well, yeah. So just a couple early birds. Shannon says greetings from the Empire, and Thomas Tucker says greetings to all.
Oh, hey Thomas, hey Shannon, two of my bestest friends. So that's what do we got in there? How many people are present today?
Right now it's only 4, so I don't know what's up. I mean, maybe you're not that popular today.
Yeah, well, you know what happened. I mean, I normally set these up like an hour or so in advance, so everybody gets the information, so they can go get their snacks and stuff and be ready. And today I was really late getting this put together. I forgot we were doing it, until the last minute. I thought I was going to have to do this by myself because I looked up there and I didn't see you, and I thought, oh my God, he doesn't know either. Are you good about tracking time? I mean, do you like in your head know what day it is every day, or do you just like don't know unless somebody tells you?
Well, it depends. Like if I go on vacation or the weekend, then I start to lose track of time. But when I'm in the system within the Empire, I have to know every second of the day. I mean, that's why people used to wear watches. You wonder, well, why did people wear watches before?
Because they didn't have cell phones?
And now they have a cell phone and they tell their time with the cell phone. I guess the watch people are mad because their investments are all down the tubes.
Hey, I'll tell you what, when I quit working, I quit wearing a watch. But I ended up going out and getting the watch because I can be sitting in this chair and just fall asleep. And when I wake up, I don't know where I am. I don't know what time it is. I don't know why I don't know where I am and what time it is. And so I can always look at my watch and go, oh, it's the middle of the day. I must have fallen asleep in my chair. But, a lot of times I'll wake up at 2 in the morning and go, well, I have to go to work. Oh, wait, it's 2 in the morning. Never mind. So I've had a lady before say, I bet you don't even own a watch. I'm like, yeah, I'm one of the few people that does own a watch because I never know what time it is. I fall asleep and wake up 10 times a day. So when I wake up, I need to know if it's day or night or if I'm supposed to be somewhere. So I'm constantly looking down at my watch.
What about a cell phone? Don't you have a cell phone to do that?
Well, when you're asleep, you don't want to be reaching around trying to find your cell phone. It's always easy enough to just... And this thing here, I don't have to press any, I don't have to light the whole room up. I just press this little indigo button and it tells me exactly what time it is, and it's right there. I don't lose it.
Well, isn't that the mark of the beast on your, what is it, the right hand or the forehead?
No, I think that's the mark of the beast right there. No, no, mark of the beast. You know what the mark of the beast is. Stop being silly.
It's in you. You carry it around everywhere you go, right?
Yeah, well, I do that with money and ID and, all the other baggage that comes along with civilization.
And And now they're going to mark you for vaccination. Are you going to get your vaccination?
Hey, you know, here's the way that works. I never get vaccinations. They always push it. Like every time I go to the VA, did you get your flu shot this year? I'm like, I'm good. And I've even had a doctor that's kind of a, you know, enlightened, and he says, I don't blame you. So, you know, they kind of know it's a scam. A lot of them do that. Most of them are just mindless drones. They believe that people who don't get a flu shot die, and so they'll be really pushing for that. They push for a lot of weird stuff. When you get to my age, it's like every time you go to the doctor, they want to do a colonoscopy on you, and like, I only know 2 people that got that, and it was supposed to be 100% safe, and they both went home and died that night. So we'll skip colonoscopies. If they say we're going to take your Social Security check away, I'll be like, you know, here you go, give me my shot. But if they want to keep pretending like America is a free country and you get to make choices about your body and you're not punished for it, no, I'm not getting any stinking shot.
So did you hear about that RV that blew up on Christmas Day? Somebody went out with a bang or something?
With me, oh, it was horrible. I'm like, I've spent my whole life dreaming about owning an RV. Why would they use an RV? I mean, they could have like just brought one of those containers there and dropped it off or something. They destroyed a well, maybe it wasn't perfectly good. Maybe the RV was having some mechanical issues. I don't know. But it really hurt me. It hurt me that they would blow up an RV.
Yep, and they did it on Christmas Day. I wonder if that has some significance.
Was it Christmas Day? I thought it was like yesterday. Didn't they blow it up yesterday?
Well, let's see. No, it was 2 days ago. Yeah.
Ah, that's
they
Christmas.
Talked about it yesterday. But...
Yeah. Oh well, man. I just look. In case you missed, when we first started, I was hacking and I was choking on some spittle or something. I drank some water. I'm gonna go blow my nose because I'm really, really uncomfortable right now. Sorry. I'll be back in 1 second. I get to my tissues right here.
Well, maybe I can do a song and dance. We have 13 people listening, and yet nobody wants to ask a question. Looks like Henry doesn't have anything prepared for us. If you guys ask questions, that's what we're going to talk about.
Okay, so yeah, that's one of the things that we really need to do is stick to the subject matter. So we had, what was our first live stream? It was part 1 of Melchizedek, whatever that was, and the whole thing was technically botched, so we had to discard that because it was really good information, but you couldn't see any video, so it was just, you know, I didn't want to leave that up. The second one seemingly went very well, but on the third one we had technical issues, and by the time we got them straightened out, there was no one in the room, so that wasn't a very good one. We had to take questions about everything. Today we'll just have to see how it works out, but if we get enough people watching and they're asking questions, it would be good if all the questions were about giants. Because, you know, as long as if things are going well, we might as well stick to the original plan. But, you know, who knows? If no one shows up, we'll talk about anything. But with the subject of giants, you know, it's not... Every week I go through all these pains of trying to figure out how I'm going to introduce Livestream, and so I'll have something prepared, and I'll even have usually a few scriptures I want to quote. But because things have been falling apart nearly every week, I figured, well, I'll just go on and announce that we're talking about giants. But one of the things I did want to say, I don't think it'll take up 15 minutes of the live stream, but one of the things that I wanted to bring out was that there are a lot of scriptures that people use to support the idea that giants roamed the earth at one time. And I've gone and looked at every one of those scriptures. And, you know, when it talks about Goliath, okay, Goliath was a giant. It specifically says he was a giant. Well, it doesn't really tell us how big of a giant. You know, was he a mile tall or 50 feet tall or 30 feet tall? But if you look at it, it says, and he carried a spear, and his spear was, or his sword was a certain length. And I remember like 20 years ago, the first time I started thinking seriously about this subject, I did some research about how long a Philistine sword was, and I kind of in my head figured how big a Philistine soldier was. And I took the measurements for Goliath's, and I kind of did a little bit of algebra, and I figured out that I think at the time that Goliath was like 6'10", which is really big. If you ever see somebody 6'10", it's impressive, and they are giants. They're considered giants. In fact, they've got this thing in the U.S. They have a annual giant meeting, and to get that to be included, you have to be 6'4" or taller. And at the time, I was 6'4", so I'm not as impressed with giants as most people are, because there was a time when I was a giant. Since then, I've shrunk, so I'm 6'3" now. But I've seen people that are 6'10". It's impressive. It's shocking, but it's not like the giants that people talk about. Well, you look at Og, it tells how tall his bed was, like 14 feet. Well, if his bed was 14 feet, and he's anything like me, then Og would have been 15 feet tall, because my bed always seems like it's a foot too short. But a reasonable, he could have been 3 feet tall and had a really, really big bed because he was rich. It's not like we have anything in the Bible to tell us really, that these giants were extraordinary. They're not like the stuff from science fiction movies. But there are scriptures, other scriptures, like it says that in the beginning, there were giants in the earth in those days, and the earth became ruined because of the giants, so God brought a flood. Well, it doesn't even say giants there. In the original Hebrew, it just says there were soldiers in those days, and the soldiers were ruining the earth. And these soldiers were worshipped as heroes. It's not any different than our day. They're not giants. The word giant isn't, we don't use the word giant to describe soldiers. And in fact, the Nephilim of the Old Testament, they didn't even really call them soldiers. They just called them killers, people who cause others to die. And that's their profession. Well, that's what a soldier is. But another scripture that comes up every now and then, it says that something about how tall the Edomites were. And that scripture is there, but there are quite literally hundreds of verses in the Bible that are associated with the Edomites, and none of them bring out that the Edomites were taller than anybody else. The only verse that says anything about their height is a prophetic verse, where it says a lot of really, really ridiculous things. You know how prophecy is always really strange. It's not like descriptions of real things, like, then the beast which had 10 heads, it stood with one foot on this side of the ocean and the other foot on the other side of the ocean, and and the creatures came with the tails like serpents. It's big. It's very illustrative and shocking, and everything means something. But the verse about the Edomites being really tall there's really no regular verses that say that. It's always just that one prophetic verse. So there's a lot of verses that talk about things that people say are giants, but in the original languages they're not about giants, or they're prophetic verses. And in the archaeological record, or whatever, the fossil record, every now and then you'll see that somebody discovered a giant skeleton, and it'll be like 30 feet tall, and they'll show archaeologists or whatever, those paleontologists or whatever, with little brushes brushing the dust off of the bones. But every one I've ever seen looks really obviously photoshopped, and most of them that really look good, you'll eventually come across the photograph again where these same exact guys, same exact positions, they're with brushes and they're brushing off like a dinosaur skeleton. It's very obviously it's very obviously evidence that the original photograph was not of a giant, but of a dinosaur. It's another example of very, very good photoshopping. And it's not like I don't believe there's any such thing as giants. There's always a possibility that there were giants and Sasquatches and UFOs and all of that, because people say they see it. It's just that I don't really take a stand on it till I see it. So I've never, I've been to a couple of natural history museums. I've never seen a giant skeleton there. I've never actually seen a giant in real life. And so, I'm not gonna tell people to believe in giants when there isn't any scriptural evidence that something like that existed.
Well, a couple hellos. First comes from Jess Got Hebrick. Hi, morning, just got here. And then Patricia Ribrick says, I'm late. Did I miss anything? Um, First comment comes from Thomas Tucker. He says, Nephilim are strictly just people, ruiners of the earth, opposers of the only true God's natural law.
Yeah, that's well, the whole thing is that once you see it, you can't unsee it. I just produced a video. The video just goes through and explains each scripture that has been used to support the evidence of giants destroying the earth. And, the scriptures in their original Hebrew and Greek. You can look this up yourself. Hebrew and Greek dictionaries are readily available on the internet. You don't even have to buy one. You can look it up. The word Nephil, Nephyl, I think, or Nephilim, like the plural version of Nephil, is it's just about paid killers. It's about soldiers. It's about soldiers ruining the earth in those days. Because everybody keeps saying there's still Nephilim around. I'm like, well, yeah. I used to be a Nephilim. I was in the Satan's military. I participated in the genocide of God's children. I wasn't like a shooter. I was more like the toilet scrubber. But I ate government groceries and I cleaned government stuff for money. Makes me a Nephilim, kind of.
Thomas Tucker asks, how tall do you think Jesus Christ was?
This question you would think is like, doesn't mean anything, but it has come up. In the day when, when I was growing up, Daddy said no man has ever been 6 feet tall because when Jesus died, he was 6 feet tall. And so, I guess somehow men are 5'11", and then I don't know, they go to sleep, and when they wake up, they're 6'1". But and the thing is, that isn't even a measurement. Back in the day, when Jesus was on Earth, no one had invented the measurement of feet. It was like what, cubits or something. So, yeah. How tall was Jesus? I don't know. I'm 6'3", so I'm guessing he was 6 foot. Well, no, he was young then, so he would have been 6'4", because Jesus and I are a lot alike.
Next comment comes from Shannon Holtz.
Are you just buying into that, Ala Toledo? You're supposed to be like my comic foil or something. It's like, what's wrong with you or something? Say something.
Well, what can you say? I'm moving on. So Shannon Holtz says, I met a basketball player in the early 1990s that played for a college where I lived in Texas, and he was 7'5" tall. He had a Caprice with the front seat. He had a Caprice with the front seat removed. There are some really tall people.
I'll tell you, here's another little story. It's just trivial nonsense. But one time, my dad came home and he had he worked for Sears and Roebucks, and they sent him off to learn how to fix whatever was new at the time, microwaves or something, because he was a technician. And they would send him off every so often. And school for Sears is in Atlanta. And he said he got on the plane and he noticed this really tall guy. He was sitting next to this really tall guy. And he looked up and there was a guy coming down the aisle. And he was really tall. And then there was another tall guy. And it was like piles of tall guys getting on the plane. And he said it was whatever the team was for Atlanta. It was basketball. The whole plane was full of basketball players. And he said the guy sitting in front of him had his knees up like this. And everybody was crammed. They were all sitting sideways and stuff. And so one of the guys gave him a program from their most recent basketball game, and it had like a dozen signatures in it of really tall guys. Did I miss another question?
Next hello comes from Mountain Truth 1 Dreads. He says, morning, folks. He has some hot sauce. And then he says, Really, Hank, did Jesus have dreads? Love you.
I suspect he did. I mean, the whole thing is, if you read about, like the only natural Nazarite they talk about in the Bible, I think is Samson. He was a Nazarite. Nazarite just means set apart person, someone who's different, an outsider, or a holy man, because sometimes the word Nazir is translated as holy. That's why Jesus was called a Nazirite, not because he was a Nazarite or or Jesus of Nazareth or the Nazarene. It's all the same word. But Jesus lived in that set apart place. The place where he lived was separate from it was like okay, here we're going to get into something here just for a second that is going to be all new information for a lot of people. But in the Hebrew portion of the Bible, the Old Testament, Moses was given natural law. The people rejected, so God said, "Well, make your own law." And so He made the law of Moses. That's why it's called the law of Moses. He made it. God gave it to him. He had to carve it himself. The Ten Commandments were carved with the finger of God. The law of Moses was carved by the finger of Moses. But it had this list of rules for how the people would live when they were in the land, and so He gave them 12 tribes. But within each tribe was an area designated as a city of refuge, so they could go there. The people who were accused of committing or killing someone could go there, because they had a law that if you killed someone, even if it was by accident, the avenger of blood, a close family member, could kill you, and they would. Everybody, when you suffer a loss, you want to get revenge. That's just a natural thing that seems to happen to people. And so this place, you could run to that, and as long as you got to that place before the avenger of blood was chosen, you would sit at the gate, and the elders of the city of refuge would come out and talk to you. And if you committed a murder, they would not let you in. But say you accidentally you were chopping down a tree, and this is an example from the Bible. You're chopping down a tree, and the head falls off of your axe and flies and hits someone else and kills them. Then that's an accidental death. You could move to the city of refuge. They would let you in, and no one could go in there to kill you. But if you left the city of refuge, then that was on you. You were open game for whoever wanted to kill you could kill you, and they would not be considered a murderer. Okay, so there was one of these in each of the tribes. In the New Testament, they never talk about cities of refuge, because the word for city of refuge is a Hebrew word. What they talked about was set apart areas. Set apart area would be a city of refuge. And in Greek, the way you say set apart area is Nazareth. Nazareth. So I really believe Nazareth is means city of refuge. And the reason I believe that is, if you read the whole Bible, it talks about someone going to Nazareth, and it's in the city of Judah. And then there's another verse about people going to Nazareth. It's in Benjamin, and it's in another one's in Dan. And I really believe that there were 12 Nazareths, or set apart areas, and Jesus lived there. Now that means we have to ask ourselves, did Jesus accidentally kill someone? Well, I mean, there are stories outside of the Bible that are really, really weird. We've talked about them before, that when he was a child, he was being chased by a bully, and Jesus jumped up on a roof, and the bully tried to jump, and he fell and got killed. So there is the possibility. There just are stories out there. So it's possible that somebody was, that Jesus had to go to the city of refuge to keep the avenger of blood from killing him. It's possible. But I do believe that Nazareth simply means city of refuge.
Next comment comes from Jess Scott Hedrick. If Noah and his family were the only ones alive after the flood, how do you think we get different races? Or maybe you tie this into giants.
The thing is that's if the Nephilim were genetically different from humans, and they lived before the flood, there's always a question, well, the flood came to destroy the Nephilim. So they couldn't have gotten to the world after the flood unless they were on the ark, because the Bible clearly says no one survived except those who were on the ark. And so you look at Moses and you say, well, where did the Nephilim come from? The Bible doesn't really say that the Nephilim were the offspring of Shem or Ham or Japheth. But at the same time, you got to wonder, is like, how did we get all of these races of man? You know, Asian, European, African. There's distinct differences between these different races. That's how scientists, distinguish the different human beings, and it's how our languages are distinguished. And I think, I'll give you some things that I think about. I cannot prove, and so there's no reason to even speculate. Adam and Eve, you think about it, they were the father and mother of some race, but there were other sons of God other than Adam and Eve, and so apparently each of the sons of God would have represented a different race of mankind. But Noah was a direct descendant of Shem. He was not a descendant of all three of those. He was a descendant of Shem, and it seems like there's always a story associated with pure bloods, like Adam and Eve were brother and sister. Their children would have been like clones of them. When you get to the Promised Land, the last man that's offered rulership of the Promised Land is Abraham, and he's told his child would rule the Promised Land or the world. And Abraham said, "It's impossible because my child is not a pureblood. His mother is an Egyptian. And so he says, no, you're going to have a child with your sister." So that was a big issue for some reason. It doesn't clearly state that only purebloods were chosen by man to rule, but there is something about that line, the Adam and Eve line, because it talks about each of the sons of God, and it talks about the children of Adam and Eve, and the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren. So every great accomplishment of civilization came from these purebred offspring of Adam and Eve. We're never told about any of the other sons of God producing children that were like the inventors of music, or inventors of fire, inventors of agriculture, inventors of bricks. So all of that comes through Adam and Eve's line. It's possible that Adam and Eve were able to produce, I don't know how that works. Noah was a child of Adam and Eve, likely a pureblood. But he had 3 sons. Now, it seems as if each of the sons must have been a pureblood too, but that's not necessarily the case. It doesn't say that Noah and his wife had 3 sons, just Noah. Noah may have had children by multiple women, but it's also possible that some of the children he had were adopted. That seems to be a big issue in the Bible, is children, biological children, adopted children, and children by tradition. And so it's possible that Shem, Ham, and Japheth were representatives of the 3 races of man, and that only Shem was a direct descendant of Adam and Eve through Noah and his wife, who were direct descendants of Adam and Eve. So it's I don't want to take a stand one way or the other, but it seems to me that that obviously the Nephilim were just soldiers. They were not. It had nothing to do with their biology. They weren't biologically distinct. It's like the soldiers in the Old Testament were made up of every race of man. Did I make sense with that, Alatoledo?
Who knows? But the next comment along the line of Noah comes from Jared DeJohns. He says Noah's wives would have been different races, and he thinks that Cain's lineage invented all the other stuff.
I don't know. Cain seemingly was left out because he went off to the land of Nod, got a female sex partner from one of the other sons of God, and after he killed Abel and left, he built a city, and he named the city Enoch after one of his sons, which was named Enoch, and we never hear from them again. So, but you do hear of an Enoch that lived before the flood that was not a child of Cain. There's an Enoch that is a child of Abel, or not Abel, of Shem, not Seth. Seth was a replacement that came along after Abel was killed. So you got to wonder, was Enoch an actual child of Cain, but an adopted child of Seth? Not really Seth, but one of the ancestors through the line of Seth, Adam and Eve line, because they both have the same name. It's the same thing with Lamech. There were two Lamechs. Lamech was the father of Noah, but he was also the father of Tubal-Cain. So that's one of the questions I've always wondered. Was Tubal-Cain the brother of Noah? Well, there's two different family trees. The family tree of one Lamech is through Cain. The other family tree is through Seth. So I don't mean to confuse people, but it seems to me that in a world where you've only got like 12 people, it's kind of odd when people have the same name. So, when you hear about Tubal-Cain as the son of Lamech and Noah is the son of Lamech, but the two Lamechs have different fathers, you wonder if they're biologically two different individuals that just happen to have the same weird name, or was it the same person who was the biological child of this man, but the adopted child of this man? See, and nobody is going to tell you this stuff because they're somehow they have to be in the box. I think outside of the box. I know I do. I'm glad I do. And most of the stuff I share on this channel is due to the fact that I don't think like everybody else. But when I'm reading the Bible and I see all these people with the same exact name living at the same time, I start to wonder, was this one here jealous of giving their child that name, so they gave their child the same exact name? Doesn't really make sense. It's very likely, very possible that these people were the same people.
Along those lines, Mountain Truth One Deed says, I think there is much to be said in the scriptures for a reason. What you make of that should cause a ponder. Next question comes from Vincent S. The giants' parents or grandparents were sons of God. You were saying sons of God are children of God. Were they at one time without gender?
Well, here's my thoughts on that. Okay, in the beginning, God created heavens and the earth, right? That's not accurate. In the original Hebrew, what it says is, in the beginning, the gods, plural, created the heavens and the earth. And the religions of man have this weird, stupid explanation for what that means. But the reality is, Bible says the gods created the heavens and the earth, and they created man, or they created Adam. Doesn't say they created man, they created Adam. It says, let us create Adam in our image. Let us make Adam male and female. So at that point, Adam is said to be male and female. And so then God says, or the gods say, it's not good for man to dwell alone. Let's make a woman for him to keep him company, to be a complement to him. And so they don't go somewhere like Adam was made out of the dirt, right? He's the one that's made. He's the child, this male and female child. But the Bible says that when they made Eve, they actually took a part of Adam and made a woman out of that. So they took the female part out of Adam, made a separate individual, and they left Adam as a male. So you had a male and a female, but they're still the same origin. It's just like when human beings are growing in the womb. It starts off with just one cell, a single cell, and then you have a second cell and a third cell, and they keep breaking up, you get a human. Well, back in the day, that seemingly is kind of the process for Adam and Eve. They as God's creating this thing, somehow through some process, he gets to the point where he says they have to be two distinct people, and suddenly you have two people from one person. But that could have all happened in in a second, or a twinkling of an eye. Adam was a living being, able to communicate with God, able to do whatever it takes for him to be considered a single entity, and then within a second, he's two separate entities. And he goes, oh, at last, bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. This is so wonderful. And it can be wonderful, but really isn't.
Patricia Ribrick makes an interesting comment. Could it be the same person, the good you and the bad you?
I guess that's a possibility, but then you have to choose which of the genders is good and which is evil.
Um, Matthew Klingon says, at what point does this contradict Titus 3:9? And that apparently is a passage that says, but avoid foolish controversies, genealogies, dissensions, and quarrels about the law, for they are unprofitable and worthless.
Titus is about religion, Christianity, Hinduism, Judaism, Buddhism. Read the whole verse. It's about the nonsense of religion. We're not a religion. We're studying God's word. People who study religion and who want to divide mankind into rival tribes, rival groups, are fools. And the Bible points that out, and that's what those scriptures are about. It's not about studying the Bible deeply. Human beings who are filled with the Holy Spirit will always try to learn as much about God as possible. That verse in Titus is about the fools of religion forming up into teams based on their nonsensical religious values. That is not what we're doing.
A couple more hellos. Bug Out Bubba says, better late than never. And Rick Ballard says, howdy, y'all. Now, Jaboom Blue says, okay, this is about the giants. How does this knowledge tie into the gospel message? Paul never lost sight of the message of the good news, the gospel.
Yeah, I think it's good to know exactly how we got from where we were when we were created in a paradise to where we are now, because when Adam and Eve broke free from rulership by God, which they thought they were free, it brought about the world that we live in today. I mean, it wasn't immediate, but things started going bad pretty quickly. And so back in Adam and Eve's day, the different families of man apparently were breaking up into nations. The rulers of those nations wanted to rule the whole world. And so in order for someone to rule over the whole world, he has to kill everyone else who wants to rule over the whole world. You can't rule over the whole world if there's a bunch of people claiming that position. And so we got into wars. So all the stories in the Bible about these wars for world domination are always confused by the churches. They always want to attempt to to cover up the fact that God does not have a favorite race. God does not have a favorite nation. God does not have a favorite religion. And we're going to see that with our own eyes in the very, very near future. Everyone who associates themselves with a race. And I'm not talking about I'm not talking about the Ku Klux Klan. I'm talking about anyone who wakes up going, my people are being oppressed. Or my people can't get jobs because the government is giving all the jobs to the minorities. Those people are all going to be wiped out. You don't want to be involved in those kind of controversies. If you think you're an American, it's like, what is that? Here's something that really, really disgusts me is that people will say the Republicans are ruining our great nation. Or they'll say the Democrats are ruining our great nation. And I try to keep an open mind about this. It's like, okay, what part of the teaching of the Republicans is bad? And people will tell me, well, they are warlike, and yeah, that is bad. Now, what is good about the Democrats? Oh, well, they stand up for the rights of the unborn. And yeah, okay, well, that is good. But the fact is, you got to look at these people are just two groups of gods. The Democrat gods want to rule the earth in their way. The Republican gods want to rule the earth in their way. Those of us who are not Democrats and not Republicans want to do what the ruler says to do. And I'm not talking about the Democrat ruler or the Republican ruler. I'm talking about the ruler who has been chosen by God. We want Jesus to rule the earth. We're not going to go to the polls and vote for a replacement for Jesus because we know that we don't need a replacement for Jesus. So all of this stuff, everything having to do with the who the Nephilim are, or which soldiers are the good soldiers, and which soldiers are the bad soldiers, which race is the good race, and which race is the bad race, which religion is the good. None of that stuff should matter to us, because every one of these people who associate themselves, who physically, in their mind, believe they're part of a race, or part of a nation, or part of a religion, all of these people who have attached themselves to one of Satan's warring teams are going to be destroyed when Satan is destroyed. All the verses in the Bible about everlasting life and death, they're not about going to heaven or going to hell. They're about the end of the world, when everyone who thinks that their team has the right to rule kills everyone else whose team thinks they have the right to rule. You don't want to be part of a team. We're part of the earth. And that doesn't mean we're all part of humanity. When you are a child of God, you have to love each and every other child of God. And that would be monkeys, rhinoceroses, fish, birds. If you think you're on any team, even if you're on the human team, God's going to put an end to you. You have to be able to recognize who your Father is, and recognize that He's the Father of every living thing on this planet.
Bob G says the concept that we grew up with is God equals religion, and the religion equals God's false foundation.
Yep. Well, you know what? That's the thing, is there are a lot of people out there. Well, it's one of the things that comes up pretty regular in my, in the comments section of my videos, is that atheists are so evil. Like, no, atheists are some of the best people out there. If you meet someone who hates hates God, if you dig deep enough, you'll find out that they don't hate God. They hate religion. Even they could be confused. A lot of atheists believe they hate God, or they don't believe in God, but they just don't believe in the gods of religion. They just hate the gods of religion. And once if you can convince an atheist that you don't believe in the God of religion, or you don't worship the God of religion, and they actually can accept that, what we're doing here is not a religion, then they'll usually listen. In fact, most of the people who come to my channel that seem to have the strongest foundation are the ones who had the ability to reject religion before I got to them, because that's always the hardest part. When you get someone who's a born-again Christian, or a Catholic, or a Lutheran, a Hindu, Buddhist, doesn't make any difference. It's hard to break them free of that. With an atheist, you don't have as much of a struggle breaking them free from atheism sometimes.
Couple more comments. Discord 42 says, catching the tail end. Hope you're all doing well. And Simple Jones says, will you wear a Pope hat on the video number 9? Just making sure you're not a robot. Next comment, going back to the Giants, is from Howard Bushker. He says, I find it interesting that the Hopi Indians tell stories of giants.
Yeah, I mean, it is a possibility. It's not even, you think about it. Okay, we've got Hopi Indians, which was not that long ago, 1,000 years ago. But they're always finding these carvings on stone walls or whatever, monuments, where you'll have all these little bitty people. Like even in Egyptian tombs, there's always these little bitty people, and then there's the pharaoh will be standing up, and he's like 10 times taller than all of the other people. It may not mean anything. That could be a picture. Like if you go to Egypt, they've got these gigantic statues. When you see all these little people standing in front of a giant, it might just be an actual depiction of people standing in front of that statue. But I mean, when we find the actual pharaoh, in a tomb somewhere, and we pull his mummy out and put it in a museum, it's like the same size as a regular person. So there's a lot of evidence out there that giants did at one time exist, and they were, this is universal all the way around the world. Indigenous peoples of America, Australia, Africa, they all have these stories of giants. And when you have that, you have to wonder if that's in fact there must have been giants. But it's we don't. It's if there are giant skeletons hidden away somewhere, they're not available for public viewing. And how do you overcome that? If the government's hiding that from us, or the churches are hiding it from us, it's hidden from us. So we don't. The evidence we have is not proof. We have evidence that there are giants. We have no proof.
Mountain Truth One Deed says there is evidence worldwide of giants, 6 toes and fingers and dual sets of teeth. And then Jared DeJohn says people have said that the Smithsonian Museum destroys all giant skeletons.
Like I said, if they're doing that, how do we overcome that? Do we raid the Smithsonian and kill everybody and dig through all their boxes to see if they fail to destroy some evidence? There is absolute proof that governments and religions do that stuff. They have found there's an area in the United States where there's this like riverbed where there's all these footprints of dinosaurs and mammoths and and humans all in this. And it's not like people are saying that's what it is. It's very obvious that if you're a human being and you go look at this, you can see that there's footprints. But in that riverbed, there are areas where giant dinosaur stepped, went on about his business. A man came along and stepped in the dinosaur footprint. I mean, you can see a trail of dinosaur footprints, and then you see a trail of human footprints, and where they cross, there's a perfect human footprint in a perfect dinosaur footprint. And so a whole bunch of people went out there and they took photographs, they made plaster casts, and one day they went out there to do something with it, and there was a big old hole where someone had gone out there with a jackhammer or whatever and took it up. And you can see it to this day. It's there. There's a big square jackhammered hole, dinosaur footprints leading to it and away from it, and human footprints leading to it and away from it. And I don't think there's any way to explain that other than that somebody did not want anyone to know, or they did not want any proof to exist that dinosaurs and humans were on Earth at the same time. The governments do that, the museums do that, there are just individuals. Somebody somewhere does not want that information out, it's destroyed. So if they're doing that with footprints, then certainly they would do that with giant skeletons, if they exist. I want to make it clear that I'm not taking a stand one way or the other. I just know that the Bible does not speak of giants.
Okay, Jared DeJohn says, so you think that Noah's flood could be responsible for these dinosaur skeletons being frozen in mud fossils?
Oh, yeah. Well, if you think about how people normally die, or animals die, one animal goes somewhere and just die. And then there's places that we have where there are thousands of animal skeletons all in one pile, like they were killed at the same time, in the same place, buried in the same mud. It's kind of hard to say that those animals just kept going in there year after year after year and dying, and then somehow something happened to bury all the bones and turn them into stone at the same time. They all got killed the same day by something. And then not only that, but, the flood, in the Bible, it doesn't say that water came and washed away the world. It says that, in the very beginning, it says the floodgates of the heavens were opened and all, if you read that in Hebrew, what it says is the ice shield was shattered as if crushed. And so you've got flood damage all the way across the world in the tropics. Not even just in the tropics, but even beyond the tropics. So that band around the Earth, the equator, real wide band, is full of flood damage. But when you go to the North Pole and South Pole, the closer you get to that, the more you don't see that kind of flood damage. What you see is just piles and piles of ice, and when you dig under the ice, there are thousands of crushed animals. And the animals are crushed with tropical vegetation in their mouths. Of course, the empire has an explanation for that, and their explanation is magic. Oh yeah, it's Ice Age. It's magic. That kind of magic isn't real. There was no such thing as millions of ice ages. There's like one incident where millions of tons of ice fell to the earth, just like the Bible says.
Another hello comes from 1683 Clifton. He says, holy moly, I got you live. It's Damon 1683 Clifton. Can I speak to you later?
Sure. Whether you wanted to call on Skype or something, just look after this is over with. I don't know who is Clifton. It seems like I talked to him on Skype once before. But anyways, yeah, if you're on Skype with me already, yeah, give me a call if you want. But I can't even remember who that. Watch, this is going to be like Carlos or somebody that I talk to every day. But I saw that he had left a comment right before the live stream, but I didn't have a chance to get to him. I figured I'd talk to him after.
Next comes Jared DeJohn says, we have a giant Indian statue here in Syracuse found on the land. And he said, and then he asked, so Goliath was really the only recorded giant? And if that's the case, he really wasn't even giant. He was just a tall person.
Yeah, well, the thing is, there are more than one. He was a Philistine, but he wasn't just a Philistine. There's something else about him. He was in a specific area. Well, he had a cousin. Like, if you read a little later in the Bible, there's another cousin comes along who was Goliath, related to Goliath from the same area, and he was killed by David too, I think. But it specifically calls both of them giants, I think. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't tell you where that's at, but I do remember seeing it. So at least his family had a couple of tall kids.
Clifton says, Guitar Man, I was trying to camp in your bus.
Oh, wait a second.
That's a song or something?
No. This is, is that from Clifton again?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, somebody said they were going to come down, and I said, well, you stay in the house. And he said, no, I'm going to stay in the bus. I said, well,
yeah,
right now, I was like, I don't want that, because until I get FEMA out of here and I get my insurance company out of here and get Habitat for Humanity, I don't want to just have all my subscribers showing up, because that just turns into too much work for me. And I want to get my house fixed, and I want to get my yard straightened out a little bit, but I'd rather use the systems that are in place before I start imposing on individuals. There's no reason for anybody to come down and work if they don't have to. I don't mind meeting with people. I have if this guy, I've seen his name up for about a year. I've talked to him. So if you're out there and you've never left a comment before, don't say, let me have your Skype address, because I'll just tell you, okay, just keep in touch, keep making comments. In a year, if you can comment and you can benefit our little group here for a year, then I'll Skype with you. But otherwise I won't, because you end up Skyping with people that like your video about how to butcher a chicken. And they have absolutely no respect for what I teach about the Bible. So I don't want that kind of person. I want to make sure that if you're wanting to talk to me, you really know who I am. I don't want you to come here talking to me on Skype and you hate God, or you hate black people, or you hate Republicans, or any of that stuff. I kind of like to filter out those kind of people. Remember how hard it was for you to get to talk to me, Al Toledo?
Well, that was almost probably 10 years ago.
Yeah. It was real easy back then. Somebody say, hey, you sure is smart. And I'd be like, let's Skype. I've never had a friend before. Please call me. But since then, I've had so many people burn me because of my YouTube channel that I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. Once you know who I really am, if you still are attracted to me, you still think I'm a good person, you still want to talk to me, then we'll talk. But I've kind of learned that people will contact you based on one stupid video, and they'll think you're the best thing in the world. And when they find out who you really are, they call you names and all that kind of stuff. So keep watching.
Just a couple quick comments. First is from It's Not Real. Says, hello, everyone. I think it's important to remember that our God is, after all, regaining his world back, for God so loved the world. And then Jared DeJohn says, real appreciative of this fellowship. Not too many individuals around here that enjoy discussing these matters. The servant wants to know if Jesus Christ was a Rasta.
No, Rasta is somebody that's involved in religion. Jesus was born in a nation ruled over by, the form of human laws. that God allowed at that time. He was using that people. You know, it always talks about God's chosen people. So he said, okay, I'll choose you. We'll go ahead and watch. We'll let you do things. You can come to me. So the Jews were like constantly going, you know, you said we couldn't have a king, but we really want a king. Is that okay? And God would be like, all right, go ahead, have a king. I don't care. And but he, you know, so Jesus was born into that, and so he did the things that were required by the law. And so to this day, people are going, oh, Jesus was a Jew, so we all have to be Jews. No, Jesus was a Jew because he was born inside the borders of an extremely oppressive nation, and he went along with that stuff. But he would never be involved in religion. Now, he probably had dreadlocks. You know, that was a question earlier, right? And did Jesus have dreadlocks? Was Jesus a Rasta? Was Jesus tall? The fact is that if you look at Samson, he had dreadlocks. It physically said Samson had dreadlocks. Why do I get all off subject so bad? Aren't you supposed to keep track of what I'm doing and straighten me out every now and then, Alice? Well, anyway, the thing is, even when Paul, you know, when he went to the temple, it says he shaved his head bald because he had taken the vow, the Nazarite vow, which is a legalism. Samson wasn't under that. Samson was a Nazarite because he was just, that's the way he was. But after the law, you know, once the law was handed out and there were strict rules about who could be a Nazarite and who couldn't, people pretty much were given a list of rules about how to be like Samson. And one of the things is that they don't cut their hair. It doesn't say you have to have dreadlocks. It just says don't cut your hair. I can promise you, if you're Middle Eastern and you stop cutting your hair and you don't own a comb, you're going to have dreadlocks. It's just the way it works. When Paul went to the temple and shaved his head, he took the vow. After that, he said he took the vow, which means he grew his hair and that he probably had dreadlocks as well. In fact, when he talked to the congregation at Corinth, he wrote 2 letters. In one of the letters, he says, I don't know what's wrong with you people. You know, when I come here, I'm dishonored. But I look around and you're not dishonored. And he says, obviously, having long hair for a man is a dishonor. But why do you reject your dishonor? You know, this dishonor is what you have to accept if you're going to be a follower of Christ. And it said that he cut off it doesn't say, you know, it's a dishonor to have long hair. What it actually says is it's a dishonor to have tassus. Tassus is supposedly braids, but I don't think that's what tassus is. If you look it up, it's basically hair that ties itself together, not hair that you tie together. So, you know, Paul very obviously had dreadlocks. Samson had dreadlocks. All of the Nazarites very likely had dreadlocks. John the Baptist very, very likely had dreadlocks. There's nothing to indicate that Jesus would have kept his head shaved or kept his hair cut. If he had long hair, he was a Middle Easterner, he would have had dreadlocks. There would have been no way around it. So it's not a religious belief. You don't have to believe Jesus had dreadlocks. You just have to know that Jesus was different than everybody.
Next hello comes from Sermon Files. He says, greetings, Earthlings. Next question comes from Jarvis Pennyworth. I'm curious to know, why did the Hebrews demand a law condemning witches? Could these witches just be people who used herbs to treat illnesses or get high from smoking hallucinogenic plants?
Well, you know, there isn't any evidence that God rejected, you know, what the narcotics that were available back then. You know, I mean, I don't feel like I'm breaking God's law when I take pills. I don't take anything from my pharmacists are all licensed by the state. I don't have a pharmacist downtown that just you buy while you're driving past them. So, you know, we accept these certified medicines as okay. Why would we reject the ones that are not certified by the state? So people may or may not have used weed back then. But I don't think that the condemnation of witches has anything to do with that, because when Saul was about to die, he knew he was in trouble. You know, King Saul, he was being chased by his enemies. And so he sought out the witch of Endor. And he disguised his appearance so the witch wouldn't know who he was, because it was against the law, right? It was against the law. Saul was the king So obviously this witch is not going to say, hey, Saul, I'm a witch. But he went and sought her out. Everybody knew who she was. And he says, I need your help. And when she found out it was Saul, it's like, oh, no, I'm not stupid. I'm not going to perform witchcraft in front of King Saul. You'll have me killed. And he says, no, 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 I'm in trouble. And so we're not going to worry about the law. I need to talk to Samuel, who was dead. Samuel was already dead. Because I need Samuel to tell me how to get out of this. And so she said, okay. So she did whatever she did to call Samuel out of the grave. And Saul saw him. It says he physically saw Samuel coming up out of the ground. And he says, the witch says, Samuel, Saul wants to ask you a question. And Samuel's like, why did you wake me up? I was at peace. I was in the grave and at peace, and you woke me up. You disturbed my sleep. Saul said, well, I'm in trouble, and I need you to tell me what to do. And so Samuel says, well, you're going to die, so I guess the best thing for you to do is go die. And really, if you read it, that's about the way he says that. But see, that woman wasn't smoking weed. That's not what got her to, or she may have been, but I mean, that's not the problem. The problem was that she was able to resurrect or bring back the spirits of the dead to communicate with them. And so that was the no-no. How she did it, we don't know, but may have had nothing to do with any kind of narcotics. She may have just physically called him and he came up. If she used hallucinogenics to do that, we'll never know. I mean, people who use hallucinogenics say they see, all kinds of stuff that the rest of us don't see. And there's no reason to doubt. If they think it was real, then it's no reason to doubt that it was real.
Next question comes from Bug Out Bubba. Why did certain animals become killers? Surely if the creator abhors killing, that would apply to animals as well. Was Satan able to corrupt crocodiles, beavers, etc.?
If you look at a lion or an alligator or a crocodile or whatever, they look like killers. They're really fast. They're very powerful. They have very sharp claws, very sharp teeth. That's not something that they would need for anything they do except for killing. But the Bible this is going to sound weird. I don't want anybody to think I have some kind of bizarre religious belief. Because the Bible does say there will come a time when the lamb will lay down with a lion, and another scripture says that a serpent will, a child will play upon the orifice of a poisonous serpent. Another verse says that there will come a time when the wolf will reside with the lamb. And so all of these different verses speak of a time when everything gets along. I don't know if that's like everything on this earth. You'll have all these lions. What are they going to do? Eat from the trees of life? Maybe. I don't know. But they can't. Obviously, a lion will not be eating lambs, or serpents will not be biting children. But that may be because, right now we have 8 planets around our sun. None of them are habitable by any kind of an animal that lives here. But it's possible that all those verses about the earth being at peace with all of these animals is going to be based on the fact that humans will live here with the peaceful animals. Maybe all the other animals will be brought back to life on one of those other planets. Or maybe they will all be brought back on the same planet, but they won't eat meat. Right now, scientifically, it sounds really silly. Why would a lion start eating grass like the bull? That's a scripture from the Bible. The lion will eat grass like the bull. So, is that, figurative, or is that real? I don't know. It would be nice if all those animals were still here, but they were safe, not dangerous.
Okay, we're at the top of the hour, so this is the last question. Sandra Lagota says, seems a lot of how civilization is constructed has to do with mind control, controlling our thoughts, our beliefs, what we think is true, history, reality, sciences, all of it. And then go ahead and take us out.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, if if you've been watching these videos for a while, it's like there's a lot of systems in place for controlling mankind. I always say that Satan's empire is divided up. It's like a trinity. That's why so many religions are based on a trinity. You've got Father, Son, Holy Ghost, which is actually, if you read up on all of what that means, it's the political system, the economic system, and the belief system of civilization. And so for years, thousands of years, the belief system was like religion. It's Christian, Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, and they have these bizarre, nonsensical rules, and they always align themselves with one another to go to war with the others. But in our day, it's not that just that clean cut. It's not these traditional religions that are the belief system. Starting hundreds of years ago, you began to have what we call the media, newspapers, then a radio, and then TV, and now the internet, where people put their beliefs in that. So the media is actually a religion, and science itself. Originally science was sacred geometry, then it became alchemy, and then it became science. And so we talk about, there was a time when people believed in alchemy. Well, that's not true. We still believe in alchemy. Just because alchemy got more accurate and more provable doesn't mean that modern science is not alchemy. Just listen to some of the nonsense that science teaches as fact. So in effect, science itself is a religion. But all of these systems have been put in place to keep mankind in the dark. But while they're doing that, they're doing things overtly, right out in the open. They're like, you go to watch a movie and there's all these little satanic symbolisms in the movie. And, me and one of my subscribers were talking last night about how Hollywood comes up with these things where they give you just enough truth to drag you in, or just enough truth to, like, distract you from real truth. And so we've got this system in place. It's called propaganda. When it's some other country, it's propaganda. The Germans had propaganda. The Soviet Union had propaganda. America doesn't have propaganda. That's right, because propaganda is like a foreign word that means public relations. The United States does have public relations. And the public relations comes through the organized traditional religions. It comes through the media. It comes through science. But each and every bit of it is designed to manipulate mankind into these unacceptable behaviors. And you wake up in a world where warfare is okay. And in fact, the people who participated in it are considered righteous. Every time I go to Lowe's, I want a good deal. I'll go buy $100 worth of stuff. Well, Lowe's will give me $10 off of that by just showing them my credentials from the Veterans Administration. But I have to show them that. I have to pull out my Veterans Administration ID. And this is universal, always. Anytime anybody finds out I'm a veteran, they're like, thank you for your service. And it just blows my mind that human beings consider being in the military some kind of righteous act. You know me. I'm like a smart aleck, right? So every time I get it's a regular scripted thing. I go to Lowe's. I say, give me this fruit tree, or give me this lumber. Here's my ID so I can get my discount. Oh, thank you for your service, sir. And I go, oh, no. Don't thank me. I've never actually committed any murders. So, I was basically the janitor. So, but I get the card, because that's not a rule. You don't have to actually kill anybody to get the discount. But, just letting you know, no reason to thank me. I've never engaged in murder. Have I told people that before? Never mind. I know you don't want to start talking now. You just want me to take us out. As always, thank you for being here. I hope you'll come back next week. This Melchizedek series is going very well. We've got 5 more videos in the series before we get, to get to the part 9. Part 10 is the final video in the series. I always talk about how sick I get in the winter. This year I feel fantastic, but still, once again, just like every year, my mind is really cloudy. I'm having a hard time putting part 10 together. I'll get it together in the spring for sure. I am hoping that somehow I can struggle through and get part 10 posted 1 week after part 9 like it should be. But just know that there's a good possibility that it's going to be 5 more months before part 10 goes up. Just come back for each part each week. And if part 10 takes longer, try to come back for that as well. This is a wonderful series. A lot of religious ideas are being overthrown, and they're going to continue to be. In fact, in the upcoming videos, your minds are going to be blown. I promise you. As always, love y'all. And if you don't want to survive, don't listen to me.